Oh, please don't do it all would be my first piece of advice. Coming from me, I'm really about focus and simplicity. So let's talk about how if you look back at all the case studies, 99% that have ever gone on, first and foremost, you choose a content niche area, what we call the content tilt. What is the thing that you're focusing on, your big idea that can differentiate you from all the other clutter out there?
Hi friends, I'm Katie Brinkley and you're listening to Rocky Mountain Marketing. With nearly 2 decades helping business owners, consultants, and coaches with their digital marketing, I know that social media can be an incredible tool to grow your business when you know how to do it the right way. And that's what we're going to do today. I teach you how to navigate the world of entrepreneurship and digital marketing, and hopefully you'll grow your business with a few great tips you wouldn't have known otherwise, and maybe even discover a great local business you love. Let's dive into today's episode. Welcome back to another episode of Rocky Mountain Marketing. Now, a few weeks ago, I had the opportunity of sitting down with somebody that I've really admired in the content entrepreneur world for quite some time. I've seen them speak on stages all over the country. I subscribe to his newsletter. I listen to his podcasts. I've read his books. I had the opportunity of sitting down with Joe Pulizzi, and he is the content entrepreneur. He's the founder of The Tilt. And I spoke with him before my event, Social Profit Lab, which came out in February of 2023. And I'm actually going to be going to Cleveland to speak at Joe's event, CEX, in just a couple weeks. So CEX is an incredible event, and I'm so excited that I had the opportunity to sit down with Joe, and we talk a lot about what it's like to be a content entrepreneur and the importance of building your community, building out that audience so that you have the opportunity to grow with them. Your community, your followers, they're your biggest fans. And Joe gives us a lot of great insights into how you can do this, a number of different ways that you can do this. And this was such a good conversation. I had to share it with all of you listeners on Rocky Mountain Marketing. So without further ado, let's check out this interview. Joe Pulizzi, he is man, I don't even know how to introduce you appropriately because you are in charge of so many things. You have the Tilt newsletter, which is a great resource for content creators. You have the CEX event, which I am going to be speaking at this May. I went last year and it was absolutely incredible. You're an author, you're a podcast host. Joe, I'm so glad that you are a sponsor of Social Profit Lab. Thank you so much.
Well, no, I found out you were doing this thing, and of course, you and I support each other, and that's what's great about this. So I don't know how deep we're going to get into social media or content creation or whatever, but my favorite part over anything else is building relationships like you and I have, and the community is amazing, and everyone wants to support each other. So it's pretty fantastic. When I first started in this industry 20 years ago, I'm like, oh, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm going to do my thing. And it's sort of the lone wolf thing. And then you realize that you don't get there by yourself. You need a lot of help. And there's a lot of super smart people out there. So
it's true. And I think that actually this is a perfect segue in here is you're an entrepreneur. And as entrepreneurs, it can be hard to do all the things and it can sometimes seem very lonely. And when you hear like, oh, well, you need to be building an email list. Oh, you should have a podcast. Oh, are you blogging? You need to also make sure that you're dancing on TikTok. You need to be doing all of these things, and it can get extremely overwhelming. And that's kind of where you have built your business with content marketing. All those things I just listed are different pieces of content. But you've seemed to shift a little bit from building content, the content marketing world to more of the creator world, the creator economy. Tell us just a little bit about that shift and how it is different for an entrepreneur.
So I mean, my first 20 years, I hate saying that, it seems like a really long time. I focused on the practice of content marketing. When I started, it wasn't called content marketing. It's called custom publishing or custom media or member communications. Looked like custom magazines. This is back in the days of print. And when Google came around and social media came around, I said, oh my God, there's a whole lot of companies that are going to have to learn how to tell stories and draw people to themselves, because you need content to go into those social media pipes and you need really good information to be found on Google. So I figured out this, hey, if it's going to be focused on marketers, that was our target, marketing professionals, you better call it something marketing. So that's when I started calling it content marketing. This is back in 2007, created Content Marketing Institute. And I love that. They're very complex content challenges. You're dealing with multiple people in the organization, multiple departments. You've got to get buy-in at multiple levels. So we work with mostly like billion-dollar properties and training them on how to do it. And as you said, we created a very large event called Content Marketing World. And I got out of that world in 2017, took a year sabbatical, wrote a novel called The Will to Die, which I'm working on the second one. Like, all that stuff is fun. But 2020, a lot of this had to do with learning about Web3, learning about a lot of my friends and colleagues that were building platforms basically on social media networks and not having any kind of assets for themselves. And that concerned me. And that's when I came out with the new version of Content Inc. book I wrote in 2021. And it was all about, hey, let's build our platforms. Let's become little media companies, and little media companies do one thing really well, and that's build assets, which are not on platforms like TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. And so I, basically started teaching more and more about that. And I said, well, if I'm going to write a book, I might as well create a new business to the behest of my wife. So we created the newsletter, The Tilt, and the Creator Academy Expo that we met at last year, which was great, all targeting this idea of the content entrepreneur. First and foremost, a business owner, an entrepreneur. And second, how do we go to market? Content first. So we don't lead with products and services first. We lead with, we're going to build an audience. We're going to find a content niche that we become the leading expert in. And then you build that audience over time and then monetize it. So I've been doing that. So I've been doing this thing for, 20, almost 25 years now, but I've been trying to teach and work with and build a community just in this content entrepreneur space.
And I love that you call it a content entrepreneur, because we do have our business, but if we want to grow, how are we going to find that audience? How are we going to build that audience using these different free tools? I mean, you can have a podcast for free. I mean, like, you got to buy the microphone and
Sure.
then hosting and everything. But I mean, essentially, there's not that much upfront costs. Blogging, you can do that for free. Showing up on social media, when you have a strategy, you can do all of that for free. But how are you going to really take those people and turn them into buyers, turn them into people that are going to be clients and customers? So that during the Social Profit Lab here, we're going through a ton of different tips, from email list building to how to do it on Instagram, how to do it with the podcast as a host versus as a guest, all these different ways. If someone's sitting here and they're like, these sessions have been amazing, I don't even know which one to choose. Do I choose all? Do I do it all? What would your advice to them be?
Oh, please don't do it all, would be my first piece of advice. Coming from me, I'm really about focus and simplicity. So let's talk about how if you look back at all the case studies, 99% that have ever gone on, first and foremost, you choose a content niche area, what we call the content tilt. What is the thing that you're focusing on, your big idea that can differentiate you from all the other clutter out there? So like, in my case, I'm focusing on the content entrepreneur. My one 5 years ago was content marketing. So those were my niches. Now, if you just go out and you say, I'm going to do the blog and the podcast and Twitter and LinkedIn and everything, what you're going to have, and what generally you see, is a lot of mediocre content. If you spread yourself too thin, especially in the beginning, you won't make an impact on anyone. Now, I'm not saying you can't do that, and it has happened, but it rarely happens. So I'm talking about 99% of the time, successful content entrepreneurs focus on one area. That's their home base. So what is it? Is it a blog? Is it a newsletter? Is it a podcast? Is it a YouTube channel? Is it a TikTok? Whatever. It doesn't matter. It could be could be a social network. It could be something owned like an email newsletter. But you have to focus on that. So you have your niche, and then you have pick that one. And then you activate that through many different social channels secondarily. So if I'm going to build an audience on LinkedIn and my home base is my email newsletter. Well, now I know some things about my business model. I'm building an audience on LinkedIn, and what's my purpose ultimately? To get them to sign up for my email newsletter off platform. And then once I build my audience, and that's the whole thing with the Content Inc. model that we've been talking about, build your audience first, and then you can monetize it 8, 9, 10 different ways. So you focus on those things. And here's the thing, because you mentioned it before, it's really important. There's been a democratization of content. Everyone can be a content creator. Everyone can be a content entrepreneur if they choose to. What's the big differentiation? Well, outside of those first two things we talked about, the third one is patience. We know, if we look at, we've been doing studies on this at the Tilt for almost 3 years now, and we know that to successfully monetize an audience, it takes low point 18 to 24 months. So if you said, Joe, I want to do this, I want to be a content entrepreneur, let's go do it. And they say, I want to do it in 9 to 12 months. It's probably not going to happen. It's just not. So you have to prepare yourself as an entrepreneur for what I call the bologna and ramen noodle years. Like, you have to scale your expenses back. You have to be smart with your time and your energy, because you don't have an audience yet that you can monetize. So once you build that minimum viable audience, like for me, I use like 10,000 email subscribers as a good start for, well, first of all, you can monetize it anytime, and you should monetize it anytime. But in my history, once I got to 10,000 email subscribers, which is a good number traditionally for people that want to sponsor your email newsletter, I know I'm working with something. Now I can start sponsorship. That's low hanging fruit revenue. And I go that direction. So basically, it's find your content niche. The second thing is focus on one platform, maybe two, but really, really one. Be the best that you can. Do a Jimmy Donaldson, do a Mr. Beast. Just focused on YouTube, became the biggest creator on the planet doing that. And then it takes time. Again, talk about Mr. Beast because it's such a great case study. Started producing videos in 2012. Didn't hit 30,000 subscribers until 2016. 4 years. 4 years of all kinds of video production and creation and doing all the things. So while this is the most amazing type of life and career I could ask anyone for, I love the creator life, but you've got to remember it does take time, and you have to weigh that when you're thinking about all the things you're going to do.
Yeah, I like saying this, that going viral is not a business strategy. That's if you want to have 10 million views and get certain, it takes time and consistency and showing up for those people, day in and day out, week after week. I want to kind of just move a little bit into the world of Web3 and NFTs. Sure. So you and I are a part of a couple NFT communities. I'm an NET holder, which is a never-ending ticket holder for CEX. But Web3 and NFTs were the hot topic of 2022. For both really good reasons and then really bad reasons. Yes,
exactly.
What do you think about Web3 and NFTs as, the future of them? Should we even be paying attention to them as content entrepreneurs? Or is this something where, it's kind of just a fad?
Well, first of all, it is not a fad. 100% I'm a believer in Web3. Now, if you're asking to me whether or not you should run into Web3 before you build an audience, again, I'm not always right. Check the source, but I would probably build an audience first is what I would do. And my Web3 project would come as a monetization or community building resource later in the process. So like with, the wonderful Never Ending Ticket program, it's an NFT community. We have about 70 people involved in this it's a high ticket price to get in. And then hopefully you get a lot of benefits. But the reason why that worked is we already had our minimum viable audience. If I didn't have an audience, I'm going to go out and say, hey, be a part, spend $2,000 and be a part of this community. People would laugh. Why was Kevin Rose so, why did that take off with Proof Collective? Why did Gary Vaynerchuk take off? Because they have huge audiences. Mm-hmm. They have already had huge interest. So if you don't have huge interest, I like music NFTs right now. I mean, and by the way, if we talk about Web3, we should say, hey, you have the creator that's taking a little bit of that ownership and they're slicing it off a little bit and they're giving that to their fans. And then hopefully some of that ownership goes along with whatever the token is. And I love that aspect of it. It's a great way to find your super fans and monetize it. But again, finding your super fans, they have to come from your audience first. And that's where I think a lot of people go wrong, and they put a lot of money and time and effort into these things that are out there, these NFTs, these tokens, and then there's nobody to buy them. So again, it's just like another monetization strategy. I'm not going to go out and say, hey, I'm launching a newsletter. It costs $10,000 to sponsor this newsletter. I don't have an audience yet. Of course, it's silly. Nobody would do that. It's the same with Web3. What's happened with our little bear market in Web3 and crypto is really, really good for everything, because you had all the people that shouldn't have been doing it in the first place, or were looking for a quick buck. They're all gone. They seemingly will be all gone. There's always there, but a lot of them are gone now, doing whatever they're doing. And during this time, you've had a lot of people that care about it, know about it, put together the time and build these products up. So you have some really good things going in Web3 right now. So long term, I'm bullish. Short term, you never know. But long term, I really feel like this idea of how do we take the assets that creators can develop, slice off just a little bit into a token project, and then let the fans run with all kinds of wonderful benefits. And I'm very excited about the possibility, especially for artists and musicians and content creators, that we don't have to then rely on the monetization platform, monetization that a Instagram or a TikTok or a Patreon can offer. We can go directly to the fans and monetize that way.
I could not agree more, and I could definitely get into a much longer conversation about that.
We could make this all Web3.
I know, but I know I don't have too much time with you. But I 100% agree, and I think that without having this turn into a Web3 conversation, I do think that the evolution of community building, we're going to see the way that it should be done right now with these accounts that you just said are still here. The way that they're still showing up for their audience in this, bear market, the way that they've been able to sustain and still grow, even though the market isn't great, and they're building their community, that's what we're going to see going forward with the evolution of social media. I think it's going to be a very exciting time over
exactly.
The next
so the recommendation for people that haven't built their audience yet is just go find a community or two, get involved, see what creators are doing, see what works and doesn't work. It's all experimentation. We're very early. We're like not even getting out of the dugout yet for the first inning when it comes to this stuff.
Still lacing up our shoes in the locker room.
Yeah, exactly. You got plenty. Same thing with AI. I mean, we're so early with these things. So what do you do as a creator? You just experiment. You figure it out. You try some things. Some things are going to work. Some things aren't. But you're going to be on the cutting edge, and you'll know when the product is ready.
Absolutely. You mentioned the Tilt a little bit earlier, and that is honestly, that's where I first got connected from you. I mean, I saw you speak on stage and you talked about this newsletter. You had the QR code up and I signed up for it. And for those who are maybe new to you and the Tilt, can you just explain what the Tilt newsletter is? You talked about growing it, up to 10,000 subscribers, but really, what is that?
So basically, I'll give you the short, long story. I was a Morning Brew subscriber and still am, and I really love that newsletter model. And I wanted to start building community email first. I didn't want to build it on a social platform. And I said, okay, well, what makes the most sense? Well, as a creator, I've been inundated with getting information from 20, 30 different sources. And I said, well, wouldn't it be nice if we created a newsletter and just said, okay, here's the 15 to 20 news things that you need to know about as a creator, so you don't have to go figure it out somewhere else. And that's how I look at Morning Brew. It's like, here's all the news that, okay, you don't want to read 10,000 stories, but here's the 10 things you need to know. So that's why we created the Tilt. It's an email that goes out every Tuesday and Friday. It's got one little educational thing at the top. It's got a case study and said, here's a content entrepreneur that's really doing it that you can learn a couple things from. And then the rest of it is, here's 10 things you need to know about, and here's what we think of them, and go forth, creator, figure this thing out. So I like the model. I don't think it's overwhelming at being 2 times a week, but we're trying to be helpful. It's working so far. So we're almost 20,000 subscribers now. We haven't been hit our 2-year birthday yet. So I feel we're doing a lot of things well. And there is a need for our target content entrepreneurs, our creators, our second career. They have an expertise in something. So we're not targeting gamers or musicians or artists. They're generally people like yourself. They're trying to build their own audience. They have a community. They have an understanding of some expertise area, and then they're trying to share that expertise and build an audience. And that seems to be the people that we attract, and that's totally fine with me.
You keep saying build an audience, and that's one of the biggest things with any of this, whether, again, it's a podcast, a newsletter, social media. You have to have your audience, and they might not all be signing up to get on your books to buy from you right now, but they're watching you. They're becoming more in tune with what it is that you do, who you are as a person, why they want to be connected, tell their friends about you. You're building out your community, and the way that you can show up for them on a consistent basis is extremely important. And I think that if someone is watching right now, then they're saying like, yeah, but I've been posting to social media and it's still like my mom and some of her friends and some friends from high school or college, and I just doesn't seem like I'm growing my audience. What am I doing wrong? What would your advice to them be?
Well, I would first lean back and look at who you are who's your who. Like when you sit down and do whatever you're posting, you said social media posting. I don't know what that could be. Lots of things, right? That could be, I tweet 5 times a day. I have 2 amazing TikToks a day. I have a YouTube series. I have a podcast. What is that? Well, we talk about an audience persona. Who's your audience persona? So, Ann Hanley's a good friend of mine. She's speaking at Creator Economy Expo. She always does. She always writes for one particular person, a real person in her audience. She visualizes that, and then she writes her newsletter. So I would start with, who is that person? And the more niche, the better. Like if you are trying to go wide with your audience, let's just say you're trying to target marketing professionals. And I'd say, ooh, that's very broad. There's hundreds of thousands of those, maybe millions around the world. That's how can you be the leading informational expert in the world to marketing professionals? So I'd go down and say, okay, well, maybe it's marketing professionals in the finance area. Maybe it's the marketing professionals in the crypto finance area. Maybe it's marketing professionals in the crypto finance area who reside in New Jersey. I don't know. I'm just throwing this stuff out, but that's the point. You want to get really niche. So that's with your audience. And then on the other side, with your skill area, what's the stories you're going to tell? So you've got to figure out, okay, well, how can I create something, and whether that's entertainment or information, that you can honestly say, if I do the work, if I choose the platform and actually distribute the content, that I can be the leading informational expert in the world. And I know that sounds audacious and maybe egotistical, but that's how you have to be, because if not, somebody else is going to roll right over you. There's always something else. There's not only Netflix and Google and everything else that's out there that's taking our time, but you're talking about your competitive set, other creators, other things that are taking time away from maybe the content that you have. So you've got to be serious about that. That's where I would start. And then look at that platform. Like, are you delivering at the same time every day? Is it amazingly impactful? Is it something that they can't get anywhere? You are a media company, like it or not, so you have to be that way. And I would even go to the point, let's just say you have an email newsletter and you send it out at 7 a.m. Eastern time every week, every Friday. And then one day you send it out at 9. You could lose your audience. Just that simple. Like, you really need to be diligent and treat this as a business. Because to your point, you stop showing up one time, they'll go somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And I had to learn this hard way, because we were talking beforehand about one of my podcasts. This Old Marketing is another podcast I do with Robert Rose. I took a sabbatical in 2018 and we stopped doing it. We just got back. Started again in 2019. It took us about 3 years to get that audience back that we lost. which is devastating, right? Because we worked for 8 years to build
Right.
that audience, and then I took a year off. You can't do that. You can't even take a minute off in this business.
Mhm.
So that's why we have to be focused and simple with this whole thing, because there's a lot of things we need to do. The last thing I'll say, and I know I'm dominating here, but where a lot of creators go wrong is they create so much content. They think that that's the key. It's not. Actually, about 20 to 25% of your time is spent creating content. The other, let's put 10% off to running the business. The other 60 to 70% or so, or whatever it is, that's all in marketing the content, working the relationships that you have, making sure that people are sharing your information, commenting on sites, building relationship that way, giving people the ammunition so that they share your story. That's the most important thing that you could do at the beginning of the process if you're going to make it work. Because if you just, like LinkedIn, I've learned this really well. If you just promote on LinkedIn, even if it's great content every day, it's not going to do anything. You have to activate that content through commenting on other people's boards, other people's sites where your customers are at. And then it starts to work for you.
I am a huge fan of outbound engagement, as I call it, where, I don't post every day. However, I make a plan. I have it in my to-do list every single day. I'm going in and I'm commenting on people's posts. I'm reaching
really
out
important
in the DMs. I'm building those connections. And that, for me, it allows me to not have to worry about showing up every single day, 3 times a day, dancing on TikTok or anything. I mean, it's a different way of showing up on social media and really building out.
Well, you do, and I mean, you and I are both big on LinkedIn. I've seen you do that on LinkedIn, and usually when I'm going to comment, you're already in the comments. Like, I'm like, oh my God, she's there again. I can't. But you're right. That's so important, especially to your own audience. Like that. That's the one thing I learned about commenting on other people's posts, is that in the stream, your current followers see that. Yes. So it's a really good, not only you're going outside and trying to build new followers, it's a really good retention program as well, because your current followers see that.
Exactly. So, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I could talk for, again,
we could just do one on LinkedIn too. We could do one on Web3, one on LinkedIn, and we just go down the row.
Okay. So you have a new book coming out in March. I've already pre-ordered it.
Thank you.
And you have the event in May. Just really quick, what are your goals for the book and for the event? What are you hoping to achieve with both of these coming out?
So Epic Content Marketing, it's the second edition. Wrote this second one with our good friend Brian Piper. The reason why is that I didn't feel that there was sort of a textbook to content marketing out there, especially updated with new channels and AI and Web3. So we put it all together and said, if somebody needs a real resource for where content marketing is right now, and you want to create a strategy and really do this, and then figure out how am I going to execute this strategy, Epic Content Marketing, that's the way to go. So I'm really proud of it. Brian did a great job with the whole thing. Creator Economy Expo, May 1st to 3rd. This is my belief, and I believe this is true because we had 400 people last year. You were one of them to come out to Phoenix. This year it's in Cleveland. Is that the most important thing with becoming a content entrepreneur, and you mentioned this in the beginning, is finding people that can help you reach your goals. And sometimes, you've got a great online event, and I totally love that, but sometimes you need to meet people in person. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we're trying to create. It's not for everyone, but we're trying to get 400 to 500 people together. And what I love from what we learned last year is that there are people that put deals together and partnerships and started working with each other. And you and I started doing some stuff together. And that's what I love to see. And I think that we need more of that. But after COVID, a lot of that stuff just shut down. And it's an expense, right? Our time is an expense. Getting somewhere is an expense, but it's really important. That's where I want to see Creator Economy Expo go. Like, it's a group of content entrepreneurs that really want to learn. Of course, we got 50 plus sessions, great speakers, including yourself, but it's really getting together and how do we help each other reach get to where we want to get, which is basically becoming financially independent. But instead of launching a product and service like everyone else tries to do historically, it doesn't work that way anymore. The best business model is to build an audience first and then monetize it. And not a lot of people understand that, but it is the absolute best business model on the planet. and you're not setting yourself up for as much risk and failure, in my opinion, than just launching a product or service. Hey, just launch the audience. You're building your customer database for whatever they're going to buy. You're just doing it first instead of doing it second after the product. And I just think that's, a lot of people don't think of it that way, but I love the model.
Yeah. And I have to say too, Joe, I told you this last year, but CEX is an absolutely incredible event. You really, there's a lot of things like little touches that happen where I'm like, I didn't even know I needed this, but this is amazing. And I love that you've already thought about things I didn't even know that I needed. And the people that I met there were amazing. Some people that are speaking this year, Jordash, I met Gregarious, Brian Fanzo, and Jennifer Watson. I mean, all these people that have now become friends, and I met them at this event. And it's true. It's really nice to have people that want to create content, have their own businesses, and they're just trying to find the best way to build that audience. And you've really done a great job of bringing those people together at CEX. So thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
No, it's so funny because when we launched Content Marketing World, so the different alternative universe to CEX in 2011, I did think that we'd have to do a lot of this ourselves. It's like, okay, I got to be the entrepreneur. And then I realized that I probably have 50 like amazingly close relationships still from those events, and people that have helped me in my career that I've tried to help. But really, I mean, just salt of the earth, wonderful people. They keep in touch. I know their kids, those types of things. I didn't expect that out of it. And it's kind of special when you say, hey, you can build a business that's just you, but then you have all these relationships as well that makes it, just like you were going into an office, or just like, you were out there actually building friends as a business. That's sort of how it looks. And a lot of people don't look at it that way, but man, when you're all helping each other build your business together, it's pretty special.
Absolutely. Well, Joe, this has been amazing. I'm so glad that we were able to sit down and have this conversation. So many great pieces of advice for us as entrepreneurs as we're trying to build out that audience. Be sure to sign up for the Tilt, everyone. Be sure to check out CEX. And if you use the code Katie100, you will save $100 off of your ticket. So that's Katie100. Check it out, cex.events, and check out the Tilt. Joe, thank you so much for being a part of Social Profit Lab. I really appreciate you.
No, thank you. Thanks for putting this together. And I'll see you in person in a couple months.
I really can't thank Joe enough for taking the time to sit down with me. As a content entrepreneur and as somebody that's trying to build that audience using social media, using email, podcasting, video, you name it, he is a wealth of knowledge. And if you're listening to this podcast right now and you really gained a lot of great tips from Joe, just imagine what CEX is going to be like. It's an incredible event. I went last year as an attendee. I'm so honored to be speaking this year. It is May 1st through 3rd in Cleveland. If you want to join us, if you're in the Cleveland area or you want to be at one of the best events for creating content as a content entrepreneur, be sure to join us. Use the discount code Katie100 to save $100 off of your ticket. And I really hope to see you at CEX this May 1st through 3rd. Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of Rocky Mountain Marketing. Make sure to subscribe so that you can continue navigating the world of entrepreneurship. And I'd love to hear from you. Please leave the show a review and connect with me on social media. You can find me on Instagram at I am Katie Brinkley, or connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you're ready to start making some sales on social media, be sure to grab my free guide to selling in the DMs without being spammy. You can get that at katiebrinkley.com. Let's keep taking your marketing to all new heights.